Hey guys, Bear here from TGS with another Assassin's Creed Origins Discovery Tour live stream. We already did Pyramids today, so I'm going to be doing Alexandria and Romans now. Overall, it is stream number 48. After debating and viewing my time, I decided it'd probably be best to do this. I'll get this done in like an hour and a half or so. And from there, let's see. 450, so an hour and a half will put us at like 620. So I should be able to possibly do like 7:30 to 9:30 on Dishonored and 10 to 12 on Outlast. I had a show I watched tonight, but I mean, it's going to be on demand and all that stuff, so I think I'm just going to skip it and watch it later in the week during some other free time. The schedule on the website I will update today, probably during my break, so I'll try and sit down and really conk out a final plan. I think my, day tomorrow is set in stone now, so I should be able to basically do 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and 9:30 to 11:30 tomorrow. It's probably going to be Dishonored twice, and then Outlast because I moved Assassin's Creed up from tomorrow to today. I'm still going to keep the other one on Thursday probably, or what I'll do is I'll do Assassin's Creed tomorrow, finish it out for the week, and then I can do Dishonored once tomorrow. Probably twice on Thursday or something like that. I'm going to juggle it around, try and avoid doing them back to back if I can, since I have to do a little prep work for Dishonored, but I'll do the changes and let you guys know. I'm going to keep COD at least 1 time this week, I think, but worst case scenario I might actually pull it off and put Minecraft in its spot and start COD next week, because I know next week for sure is going to be Dishonored, Death of the Outsider continuing its DLC. I'll probably be still going through Outlast 2 since I have to do like 2 or 3 playthroughs. They'll get easy as we go, get down to like 3 streams of playthrough, but the first playthrough is probably going to take decently long, like 10 to 20 hours from what it seems so far. Assassin's Creed, there'll be 1 stream next week to do the tour. The other option would be try and fit the tour this week. I'm not really sure what the rest of the week will be like, guys, so I'm going to have to sit down and really think this out. I'll let you guys know. I don't want to say stuff now and then change it. I do want to say, if you watch this, please like, sub, check out our other content. If you check it out, leave a like and a comment. Go to thegamersociety.com, vote in our poll. You can also donate on the website, check out our schedule there that I mentioned I'll be updating. Lastly, join our club on Xbox, the Gamers Society Fan Club. Quickly go over, I did all of Egypt, I did the pyramids today. Right now I'm going to focus on Alexandria, which probably has one of the longest ones at 20 minutes. But I think it'll be quite interesting, because if you read it, it's from Julius Caesar's perspective. I'm also going to try to fit in Romans today. I think I can do both. I don't think that 15 minutes should hinder it from completion. And then whenever I do the next stream, it will, be daily life in the achievement pop, and then there'll be finally a tour video I do where I kind of tour around the cities in the game. At least the main points like Memphis, Alexandria, Cyrene. We'll visit Philadelphia and Egypt just because why not. And yeah, I might also hop into the DLCs as well in that video and kind of just hop in and show their main cities real quick. Just take a stroll down the streets, look at anything that looks unique and special. And there's also Curse of the Pharaohs. There's Thebes there in the Valley of the Kings, so you can take a look around those areas. As well as Twine or something like that. Forget what it was. Either way, let's not waste much time. Let's hop right into this. TGS presents Assassin's Creed Origins Discovery Tour, Alexandria. We have 14 different stops. I think it's about an hour and 21 minutes I counted. And we'll also be doing Romans at 15 minutes. So it's going to overall take around an hour, slightly over an hour and a half. So we should be ending around 6:30. Let's go ahead and hop in just using fast travel. I'm going to change my characters, but I think I'm going to go less random and just maybe go straight down the list. We've already played as everyone multiple times. I don't think at this time it really matters. But I like to change it up just for the fun of it. This is when Caesar crouches and walks around because he looks so goofy. We're going to start as Bayakosiwa. And we are here. This is the first one, right? I gotta make sure. So we don't mess it up. Yep, that's it. I do want to take a quick peek at one more thing. Apparently you can view everything here. Here's our passport. So again, Alexandria, Romans today, daily life in the next stream, the final stream of the Discovery Tour, and then a final stream of my entire playthrough of the game, as I believe this will complete the entire run. We have the Greek Pharaohs here.
Welcome to the Greek Pharaohs. Pharaohs were considered divine incarnations of the gods. As an avatar of the gods living on Earth, the pharaoh's role was to preserve fundamental values and universal harmony by removing chaos, Isfet, and ensure that justice, Mot, prevailed. The pharaoh, by divine ancestry and through multiple offerings, was the bond that unites the world of men to the world of the gods and allows the maintenance of the cosmic order.
Here is a relief, Ptolemaic VIII making an offering of Mot to a moon.
The Ptolemaic Dynasty reigned over Egypt from 305 BCE to 30 BCE. The dynasty was called the Ptolemies of the Lagids, in recognition of the founder of the dynasty, Ptolemy Lagos, a Greek general and close friend of Alexander the Great. While Macedonian, Ptolemy Lagos understood that to be accepted by the Egyptian people, he would have to adopt their traditions. Upon assuming the title of pharaoh, he changed his name to Ptolemy I Soter, meaning savior.
So, new presentation in July 2010, row of dynastic portraits in the Carter of Penn, Greco-Roman era. These things make him look so baby-faced.
Born in 356 BCE, Alexander the Great went through a hasty education in the affairs of the kingdom before integrating into the Macedonian army, where he quickly rose through the ranks. After his father's assassination in 336 BCE, which some believed was orchestrated by Alexander himself, he became king of Macedonia. Ruler of a unified kingdom and leader of a large army, Alexander set his sights on conquest. Eager to reclaim the Greek cities of Asia Minor, he took on the Persian forces, earning victory after victory.
Battle of Ephesus between Alexander and Darius III, 2nd century BCE.
Ever victorious, Alexander the Great marched on, laying siege to city after city until he reached Egypt, where the Persians were defeated yet again. Viewed as a liberator by the Egyptian people, Alexander decided to become pharaoh in due form. He traveled to Thebes to make a sacrifice to Apis, then went to the oasis of Siwa, where he was proclaimed son of Amun. Officially pharaoh of Egypt, Alexander spent much of the winter there and founded the city of Alexandria. Perhaps not coincidentally, being pharaoh allowed Alexander to spread propaganda to prepare further conquests. He resumed his military campaigns in 331 BCE.
Block with cartouche of Alexander the Great, or his son Alexander IV of Macedon.
On his deathbed in 323 BCE, Alexander the Great gifted the satrapy of Egypt to Ptolemy Lagos. Perfectly aware of the value of Egypt, Ptolemy ensured not only the stability of the country's borders, but also its economic and military development. At the same time, he worked with the Egyptian elite to maintain the internal order of the country. By 305 BCE, Ptolemy, well respected both in Egypt and in the Mediterranean, was at the head of the largest fleet of the Hellenistic world. Ptolemy officially took the title of Pharaoh of Egypt in January 304 BCE, on the anniversary of Alexander the Great's death.
So here's Ptolemy I, Ptolemaic era.
Alexander died in Babylon in 323 BCE. His remains were placed first in a solid gold sarcophagus, and then within another. The casket was carried in an ornate custom wagon, gilded and set with precious stones, and pulled by 64 mules crowned with gold. The funeral procession was diverted to a grandiose temple in Alexandria, built in the conqueror's honor under the orders of Ptolemy I.
Here's Alexander's tomb. Wonder if you can go still see it today. Another picture by Jean-Claude.
Julius Caesar visited Alexander's tomb at the capture of Alexandria, and the Roman Emperor Augustus reportedly placed flowers there. However, though many powerful leaders claim to have visited it, the tomb's location has gone missing from history. Some accounts do state that the golden coffin was replaced by a glass sarcophagus, probably by Ptolemy X. It is also implied that Cleopatra may have plundered the tomb in a time of financial crisis.
Augustus at the tomb of Alexander, 19th century. Tour completed. So now we got Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. You know we gotta play as Cleopatra while we learn about Cleopatra. So that's a done deal.
Welcome to Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Cleopatra VII Theophilopator ascended the throne in 51 BCE at the age of 18. Though her early attempts to maintain power were often challenged, she eventually prevailed and became the sole ruler of Egypt. According to Plutarch, she was the only Ptolemaic pharaoh to speak the Egyptian language. Her intelligence, coupled with a good education and a great political mind, allowed her to make the alliances necessary to maintain the independence of Egypt while Rome was becoming a Mediterranean empire.
Here is the head of Cleopatra VII, 69 to 30 BCE, 1st century BCE.
It is important to understand that Cleopatra's knowledge of Egyptian language and keen understanding of the culture allowed her to make powerful ideological reference that resonated with ancient Egyptians. By associating herself with the goddess Isis, the divine mother, great of magic, and repository of divine essence, Cleopatra firmly established herself as the protector of the two lands and legitimized her place on the throne.
Here is probably Cleopatra VII, Greco-Roman era.
Upon his death in 51 BCE, Ptolemy XII Aulus bequeathed his kingdom to his daughter and eldest son, Cleopatra VII and Ptolemy XIII. As was custom, the siblings were married. The new pharaoh was 10 years old, his sister wife 17. The early years of their reign were not easy. Between 50 and 48 BCE, droughts and floods aggravated Egypt's problems. General Achilles and the royal advisor Pothinos kept intervening in the young ruler's political decisions, and eventually colluded to turn Ptolemy XIII against Cleopatra. By 48 BCE, Cleopatra was in exile.
So here is a mint coin, tetradrachm of Ptolemy XIII.
During Cleopatra's exile, the Roman Empire was not without its own internal conflict. Caesar and Pompey were at war with one another, and after his defeat in 48 BCE, Pompey fled to Alexandria in the hope of finding refuge. This turned out to be an unwise decision. Listening to his advisors, Ptolemy XIII elected to have Pompey assassinated, his head kept as a gift, in the hopes of acquiring Caesar's favor. This gambit backfired. Instead of earning approval, the murder of a Roman greatly angered Caesar.
So here is Pompeii, Roman Empire era.
Cleopatra, aware of Caesar's anger against Ptolemy for the murder of Pompey, decided to take advantage of the situation. She returned to Egypt in secret, hoping to establish an alliance with one of the most powerful men of the time. Outside of the legend, where she had herself smuggled into his quarters in a carpet, what exactly happened during that fateful meeting remains a mystery. However, Caesar seemed to see a better ruler for Egypt in Cleopatra than in her young and too easily influenced brother. Invoking Ptolemy XII's will, Caesar attempted to mediate peace between the siblings.
Caesar returns Cleopatra to the Egyptian throne, 18th century. Woman on the right's like shocked. She's like,
Ptolemy XIII was enraged by the turn of events, and his advisors were none too happy to see Cleopatra return. Urged on by General Achillas and Pothinos, the young pharaoh plotted against Caesar and Cleopatra, resulting in the Siege of Alexandria in 47 BCE. It was in March 47 BCE that Caesar defeated Ptolemy XIII's forces. The young pharaoh drowned in the Nile after having fled the battlefield. With her opponents dead or powerless, Cleopatra married her other much younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, and finally claimed the throne of Egypt for good. The end of the Alexandrian War also cemented the romantic and political alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar.
Such a strange concept. She had to marry her brother, but then she's getting jiggy with Caesar. But either way, it's all weird altogether. Just here's a coin ruler, Cleopatra the Great, reign of Cleopatra.
In June of 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, whom she called Caesarion. Caesar did not accept the boy as his heir, choosing instead his nephew Octavian. Nonetheless, on his return to Rome, Caesar invited the queen and her brother husband to stay in the city. Her presence still drew much disapproval from the Senate. Always a strategist, Caesar left 4 legions in Egypt, and a man he trusted to direct Egyptian affairs, giving him control of the wheat supplies essential to Rome. Cleopatra and her entourage remained in Rome until March 44 BCE, when Caesar was murdered.
So, Dendera Tenthris, Temple of Hathor, Cleopatra and Caesarion, circa 1851. Caesar's just like, F this, I'm out. He's probably pissed because the kid wasn't full out Roman or something. No offense, but that's probably what happened. I mean, he still was hanging with her and inviting her over, and yet he wasn't accepting his child. I'm not really sure. What is up with that? Let's go this way. Learning a lot about Cleopatra.
Caesar's most faithful ally, Mark Antony, often visited the Queen of Egypt during his stay in Rome. Unlike most, he recognized the legitimacy of Caesarion, the natural son of Caesar. Antony knew he would need the riches of Egypt in order to fight Octavian and claim the Roman Empire. Cleopatra, in return, saw a powerful ally. In the winter of 41 BCE, she arranged a sumptuous tour of Egypt by boat to show Antony the wealth of her country and the power she held as its ruler. A romantic and political relationship followed. The Roman Senate was once again most displeased. To calm spirits in Rome, Antony married Octavia, sister of Octavian.
So there's a picture, Mark Antony at Cleopatra's feast, modern era. Which one is he? Is that him on the left? Either way.
Despite his marriage to Octavia, Antony remained Cleopatra's lover, and she gave birth to their children. Cleopatra increased her kingdom's territory and started a political propaganda alongside her lover in Egypt and beyond. She hoped to create a Ptolemaic federal empire with Alexandria at its center. Antony eventually repudiated his Roman wife for the Egyptian queen, much to the dismay of the Roman elite. However, while Mark Antony focused on Egypt, Octavian carefully gained military and political ascendancy over him in Rome.
Here's the Tetradrachm, portrait of Queen Cleopatra the Seventh and Mark Antony.
Octavian managed his own propaganda campaign and succeeded. The Roman people hated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. To avoid the censure still inherent in attacking a fellow Roman, Octavian simply declared war against Egypt. Rome's power still reigned supreme. The powerful Egyptian fleet, led by Cleopatra as well as Mark Antony's forces, were defeated in 31 BCE in Actium. Octavian arrived in Egypt in 30 BCE to formalize his victory.
Probably head of Cleopatra the Seventh.
The following events remain difficult to confirm due to the many versions and legends around them. It is believed that after hearing a rumor about Cleopatra's suicide, Mark Antony committed suicide himself. He was brought to the queen as he slowly passed away. Knowing that Octavian would have her chained and paraded through Rome in defeat, Cleopatra planned her own suicide. She most likely killed herself with arsenic, though admittedly, the version where she uses an asp to deliver a fatal bite may be considered more dramatic. What happened to the body of Cleopatra is still a mystery.
Death of Cleopatra by Louis Marie Bader. And there you have it, the story of Cleopatra as Cleopatra. Next we have a major one, the Siege of Alexandria, 20 minutes long, like the longest tour yet. And it's with Julius Caesar, so of course we're going to switch to Julius himself.
Welcome to the Siege of Alexandria. Among the collection of writings attributed to Julius Caesar are his descriptions of the Siege of Alexandria, the Gallic Wars, and the commentaries on the Civil War. These archives contain information on different campaigns, the Wars of Alexandria, Africa, and Spain. Each of them recounts Caesar's military activity from 58 BCE to 45 BCE. Though Caesar's documents remain a main source of information, it's important to note that the perspective is limited. It is necessary for other historical documents to be taken into consideration to provide a better understanding of events.
The Civil War by Julius Caesar, 1574 edition.
The Siege of Alexandria closely relays the events of the Civil War that led up to the event and describes how Caesar was besieged in the palace of the Ptolemies. Other ancient authors have left equally valuable and sometimes contradictory information.
So here's Alexandria Palace by Jean-Claude.
In the events leading up to the Siege of Alexandria, Cleopatra VII and her brother were fighting over control of Egypt. Young King Ptolemy XIII's regent, Pothinus, had firm control over the young pharaoh, and an outmaneuvered Cleopatra soon went into hiding. This set the stage for Pompey's arrival in Alexandria. Having lost his battle against Caesar in 48 BCE, the Roman general turned to his allies, the Egyptians, for safe harbor. But on the advice of Pothinus, Ptolemy XIII had Pompey assassinated in the hopes of earning Caesar's favor. This would turn out to be a most unfortunate decision.
Death of Pompey, 18th century. He is, I believe, beheaded right there.
Upon his arrival in Alexandria, Caesar was presented with Pompey's head. The sight of a Roman murdered by Egyptians did not sit well with him. Caesar made his displeasure clear, ordering the return of Cleopatra, and for the siblings to resolve their differences and resume their co-rule of Egypt, as per the will of their father. Neither Pothinus nor Ptolemy XIII wished to accede to this demand. While doing his best to aggravate Caesar, Pothinus secretly plotted against the Roman ruler and sent word for Egyptian general Achilles to bring his 20,000 men to fight on his behalf. While Pothinus plotted against Caesar, Cleopatra made a bold move.
Here is a picture, Caesar in Alexandria, 2016. It is a pretty cool picture. I want to test something real quick, guys. Take like 10 seconds. I do not want to listen to this
Upon his
again.
arrival in Alexandria,
Shut
Caesar
up.
was presented with Pompey's head.
Oh my
The
god.
sight of a Roman murdered
I just
by
wanted to
Egyptians
try
did
and
not sit well
screenshot the
with him.
picture and see if
Caesar
it
made
worked.
his displeasure clear, ordering the return of Cleopatra, and for the siblings to resolve their differences and resume their co-rule of Egypt, as per the will of their father.
See.
Neither Pothinus nor Ptolemy XIII
Well, apparently it let me take a
wished to accede to
screenshot.
this demand.
So I guess
While
you
doing
can take
his best to
screenshots of this stuff as
aggravate
well.
Caesar, Pothinus secretly plotted against the Roman ruler and sent word for Egyptian general Achilles to bring his 20,000 men to fight on his behalf.
Shut up!
While Pothinus plotted against Caesar,
Oh, I can't steal the horse?
Cleopatra made a bold move.
Well, the camel. Jeez. We are truly going through the streets of Alexandria on our tour. That's why it takes 20 minutes. Spend 5 minutes on the horse.
There are various descriptions of the encounter between Caesar and Cleopatra. One report states that she snuck into the palace alone at night. Another account claims she was accompanied by an ally and was brought inside the palace wrapped in a carpet bag. Though exactly what happened at this fateful meeting is up for debate, what is known is that Cleopatra met with Caesar and earned his approval. Pothinus and Ptolemy XIII were most vexed with this turn of events.
Well, we all know what probably went down here. Cleopatra meets Caesar. I mean, that gives it away right there. It's good enough. And plus, what's going on in the background. Gray-haired Caesar with nice young Cleopatra. I think they said she was like 18. Caesar's the pimp meister here. Go in the door. Just gonna ride my horse in here.
With Cleopatra finally present, Caesar chose to act as mediator between the siblings in the hopes of a peaceful resolution. It did not take long for things to sour. During a banquet given to celebrate the reconciliation, there was an assassination attempt on Caesar. It was the Roman leader's own barber who thwarted the attack. Once it was revealed that the king's regent, Pothinus, had ordered the attack, Caesar had him executed. He then placed the young king under guard.
And horse is like getting in the way, like making crazy noises. Here's Ptolemy. This is 2016 by Ubisoft. So it's not like some museum piece.
Yeah.
That's how Caesar used to roll around his house on a horse. No, I'm just kidding, but that'd be pretty epic.
Caught within the palace with roughly 4,000 troops, and with the knowledge that the arrival of enemy forces was imminent, Caesar sent for help from Syria, Rhodes, and Cilicia. He ordered his men to dig a ditch around the palace and build a wall leading to the harbor. This would ensure Caesar's access to the sea. When Egyptian General Achilles arrived in the city with 20,000 men, the battle for Alexandria began.
So, ship entering Alexandria, Ubisoft art.
Yep. Oh.
It would actually be pretty insane if you could play a Assassin's Creed game as Caesar. You're like playing as Caesar himself. Not just in a tour.
With so few men at his disposal, Caesar could not risk a battle just yet. He sent ambassadors to Achilles in the name of Ptolemy to propose a truce. Knowing that the orders did not come from the young king, and angered by the pharaoh's imprisonment, Achilles had the messengers assassinated. With Caesar confined within the palace, Achilles positioned his troops around the city. Skirmishes broke out throughout the streets of Alexandria and went on for several days and nights. Though they were outnumbered, Caesar's men were able to hold the enemy back. This prompted Achilles' next move: capture the Roman fleet stationed in the harbor.
So here's the Siege of Alexandria, according to Ubisoft. Out of the way! Oh, the whole city's different now that we went in there and came back out. Well, not, you know, structurally different, just all the chaos of war going on. Oh, that was weird. That was definitely a little freeze noise, as if the game was about to freeze. That was scary. Those are never fun. Thanks to everyone who's watching live, greatly appreciate it. If you post in chat, I'll respond. Doing Alexandria and Roman tours today. Daily life tour probably tomorrow, and that'll be it for this, other than a tour I'll do personally, riding around the city. Not as, you know, education dedicated. Mine will just be wandering around looking at the landmarks.
Although the palace offered protection, losing the port meant the end of help and supplies. Caesar knew he had to protect the fleet. While he and his troops succeeded in regaining control of the port, he knew it would be impossible to sustain. Caesar ordered the burning of the ships. With passage back to the palace closed off, he headed for the lighthouse of Alexandria.
Alexandria ship attack. There's the lighthouse in the background. Another Ubisoft interpretation.
Yep. Whoa!
Fighting their way through the Egyptian troops, Caesar and his men eventually reached Pharos Island. There, they took refuge within the lighthouse. With easy access to the open sea, Caesar was able to send messages to his allies requesting reinforcements and more supplies. The island fort also allowed him to control access to the harbor by relying on the chains used by the Egyptians to control ship traffic to and from Alexandria's docks.
So here's an overview of Alexandria by Jean-Claude. That's how the game says it. There's the lighthouse right there. Pretty much right near the center. A little bit southwest. And the rest of the city in the background.
Yep.
Geez, they're close together.
The exact chronology of events during the war in Alexandria remain imprecise. Conflicting accounts raise questions as to when, and even if, the Great Library of Alexandria was burned down at all. One account states that during the fighting, docks and warehouses were burned, and this was the fire that spread to the library. In another account, when Achilles cut off the harbor, Caesar had to leave the safety of the palace to defend his ships. As the enemies battled across the port, their arsenals set ships ablaze, and this destruction spread to the library.
Ship firing, fire arrows. I've used those quite a few times just to shoot at random people's boats while they're out with their vegetables on the river.
In either case, the Great Library was not completely destroyed. Experts point out that its location was too far from the harbor, and much later texts refer to the Great Library as being intact. Warehouses near the harbor contained manuscript copies awaiting export, and it is more likely that these documents were destroyed than the Great Library itself.
Central of Alexandria, like the gladiator arena right there, from the looks of it. Or is that the theater? It's one of the two. There's another tour right there. The heck, Caesar?
Yep.
There we go.
The destruction of the Great Library may have been due to a number of fires over the ages. Its end was probably closer to the 4th century CE, when the Christian Emperor Theodosius I ordered the closure of all pagan temples. While some documents survived after being moved away, it remains unclear just what knowledge may have been lost.
Here is a gold Salutis of Theodosius from 379 to 95. Wish you could zoom in on it, but we can't.
Yeah.
It'd be a pretty cool coin to own.
Where there are accounts of Achilles being in control of the battle against Caesar, it appears that instead Cleopatra's sister, siding with her brother, had him killed and put her ally Ganymedes in his place. Ganymedes proved a valuable tactician for the Egyptian side. It was his idea to cut Caesar's access to the harbor, thus trapping Caesar at the palace.
Yep. Whoa.
During the time of Ptolemy I, canals had been dug throughout Alexandria to provide fresh water. Ganymedes had his men take control of these canals. After isolating their own water supply, he had his men pour salt water into the canals and cisterns that led to Caesar's camp.
Damn. Well pooned.
Yep.
That's some lead poonage that you wouldn't hear of in modern times. Salting their water up so they get dehydrated.
Yeah.
Panic erupted in Caesar's men. They wouldn't last long without fresh water. Recognizing that the porous limestone could help them, Caesar and his men dug wells to restore their water supply. Days later, the 37th Legion, comprised of Pompey's soldiers, arrived by ship. Unable to come ashore due to the winds, Caesar risked going out to meet them on the peninsula, Cape Chersonese. When the enemy learned Caesar's location, they rushed to intercept. Despite an obvious advantage for the Alexandrians, Caesar, with a Rhodian ship full of skillful sailors, emerged victorious.
Ship chase by Ubisoft. This guy's pretty badass.
With help from the Allied ships, Caesar's victory enabled him to push the Egyptians back and secure the lighthouse. Gaining control of Pharos Island sent the Alexandrians into the sea and swimming back to the city. However, Caesar's fortification of the island didn't last long. The enemy regrouped and were set to storm the island. Panic-stricken, in spite of Caesar's encouragement, many of his men then fled their posts, either by ship or jumping into the sea.
Alexandria ship attack sketch, again by Ubisoft. They haven't shown us much from actual museums here. Guess they don't have many depictions of it in paintings and stuff. I could be wrong.
Caesar attempted to retreat, but Port Eunostos' harbor was overrun with enemy ships, preventing escape. Reportedly, Caesar gathered his papers and leapt overboard in an attempt to swim to an Allied ship farther out. Historian Cassius Dio claimed that Caesar would have drowned if he hadn't been able to remove his purple garment. Still, he managed to swim the distance and survive. The Alexandrians recovered the cloak and used it as a trophy to commemorate the Roman debacle.
Damn, this guy ain't giving up. Julius Caesar depiction right here by Ubisoft.
Here.
Unhappy with Ganymedes and wanting their king restored, the Alexandrians approached Caesar with a compromise. Caesar agreed to release Ptolemy XIII after entreating him to spare the kingdom and remain loyal to Rome. Once freed, however, the king defied the agreement and continued the war.
Damn. Well, that didn't go well.
Lux, sie lavni kriud meste.
Yep. Okay.
Here, I'm here. Oh, come on.
Whoa.
By this time, a faithful ally of Caesar's, Mithridates, arrived in Egypt, clashing with Ptolemy's troops at Pelusium. Outnumbering the enemy, Mithridates secured the region between Pelusium and Alexandria. Ptolemy, warned of Caesar's ally marching on Alexandria, sent his troops to prevent passage over the river.
So, Pelusium by Jean-Claude. This guy has an insane amount of pictures of ancient Egypt. And they're pretty detailed.
Here. Hup. Yep.
Mithridates warned Caesar in time, and the two groups confronted the armies of Ptolemy in the Delta. In the Battle of the Nile, the Romans gained the upper hand, sending the Egyptians fleeing. In the tumult and panic, King Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile.
Damn. I think he was trying to escape to get away, and he drowned. I guess he couldn't swim. Caesar defeats Ptolemy's forces. We got hippos messing up the boat in the middle of the war. They're like, we're on neither side, attack. Free food.
After the siege ended, Cleopatra VII married her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, enabling her to reign over Egypt until 30 BCE. Under her rule, Alexandria settled into its position within the Roman Empire and eventually surpassed Athens as one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar remained in Egypt for a short time. He and Cleopatra would later have a son named Caesarion.
Ptolemy Caesarion. Tour completed of the Siege of Alexandria. Still quite a bit to go. That was quite a long tour. We have, holy crap, we have a lot to go. We did 3 out of 14, but these alone cover a large amount of what we had to see. So let's do Introduction to Alexandria. Continue just going straight down the list.
Welcome to Introduction to Alexandria. After conquering Egypt in 331 BCE, Alexander the Great decided to build a new city, which, as per his habit, he named after himself. After his death, Alexandria quickly became the capital city of the Ptolemaic kingdom and the most important city of the Greek world.
Battle of Issus between Alexander and Darius III. I think we've seen this before.
The city was built between the Mediterranean Sea and Lake Mareotis, which resulted in Alexandria becoming a crucial cultural hub and trading center.
Here's an overview.
Yalla, yalla.
Sumptuous buildings could be seen wherever one turned their gaze. The royal palaces, the many temples, the gymnasium, lush public gardens, and large avenues.
Here is Alexandria Palace, Cape, even though Lochias, whichever it is. I swear, for some reason it's not registering on the animals. There we go.
With its incomparable beauty and advantageous geographic location, Alexandria attracted foreigners, intellectuals, and traders. One of the most cosmopolitan cities of the ancient world, Alexandria supplanted even Athens as the most important Greek city in history.
Here is the center, according to Ubisoft. Already seen that. They seem to repeat a lot of pictures here and there.
Egyptian obelisks were highly prized by Roman architects. While Roman design previously favored the use of a single monument, Egyptian obelisks tended to come in pairs and were generally located at the entrance of temples. Several ancient Egyptian obelisks are still in existence today, though many are spread out across the world in locations such as Paris, Rome, New York, and London. All of this shows that Alexandria was significantly influenced by the rich past of Egypt.
So right here, obelisk Paris Concorde. So that is an actual obelisk, I guess, in Paris. Copyrighted by Ubisoft, though. It looks like an actual picture that's been blurred a bit, I'm not sure.
Alexandria had several main streets, Its most famous artery was the Canopic Way. It was lined with sumptuous buildings, houses, and temples, and was roughly 8 kilometers in length. This street was one of the most important shipping entrances to Alexandria, and often hosted processions and festivals.
Here is a view of the Canopic Road, going straight down the center. It's Alexandria's Broadway Street. Anyone knows New York?
The width of the street, 30 meters, was abnormally large even by Greek standards.
The guy in the background, there he goes.
This is likely because the Canopic Way was made in a short span of time and based on an urban plan, as opposed to being slowly built over time, as was usual for the era.
So, Alexandria, Ubisoft art.
The Canopic Way originated in the western cemeteries, skirted the gymnasium, and then exited the city to head east through massive doorways towards Canopus. This structure was known as the Canopic Door.
Tour completed. So we got our introduction to Alexandria. First things first, will be Shadia. And we got Alexandria planning of the city.
Welcome to Alexandria. Alexander's plan to build his great city began with a verse from Homer's Odyssey. There is, in front of Egypt, in the sea with many swells, an island called Pharaohs. Guided by these clues, Alexander the Great founded his future city at the western end of the Nile Delta.
I've seen this battle like 3 times now.
Though Alexander considered this location ideal for his great city, it presented considerable challenges. Too difficult to access during storms, the surrounding swamps threatened disease, and the limestone soil prevented the growth of healthy crops. However, due to the influence of his mentor Aristotle, Alexander the Great recognized that the true value was its strategic emplacement. Alexander knew that in controlling Pelusium to the east, Memphis to the south, and his crowning glory Alexandria to the west, he would create a triangular stronghold, allowing him to control the entire delta while giving him access to the Mediterranean.
And here's a picture, Delta of the Nile.
The great walls of Alexandria had a humble beginning. Lacking chalk to outline the future city's foundations, architects were forced to use flour instead. Clouds of migrating birds swept down and ate the flour, erasing the plans. This prompted Alexander to seek guidance from the oracles, who reassured him that his future city was destined to feed a large population.
Here's the Papyrus Marsh, 18th Dynasty. It's what they use for, paper, obviously, even shoes and stuff, and boats.
Excavations led by Mahmud Bey el-Falaki in the 19th century revealed that the wall enclosure measured approximately 5.2 kilometers in length and 2.2 kilometers in width. It was roughly 9 meters in height.
Here's the view of the obelisk, seen from the walls of Alexandria.
These formidable ancient walls would resist a number of attacks, including fending off the king of Syria in 169 BCE. It wasn't until 295 CE that they eventually fell to Roman Emperor Diocletian, and this only after 8 months of relentless assault.
So, description of Egypt, view of Alexandria and the Roman Tower. The 19th century, though, 1800, so, 1800 years after what happened.
Alexandria's principal architect, Dinocrates, chose a Hippodamian grid plan. The grid maximized functionality with wide, straight roads and canals running beneath them. Alexander recognized the military value of the city's design. The wide, parallel streets gave him optimal surveillance of the city while allowing the unobstructed flow of troops.
And the Alexandria Center once again.
A central corridor ran from the Mediterranean's north port down to Lake Mareotis to the south. This thoroughfare acted as an unobstructed link for commercial trade and travel between the two ports. Many of the streets were bordered with grand buildings and parks, including Canopic Street, with its impressive gate bordering the eastern end.
Overview of Alexandria.
Alexandria was most likely built upon an already existing Egyptian village. Upon its completion, the Egyptians reviled the city, refusing to call it by its founder's name. Instead, they called it Raked, the building, as a mark of disdain, which was later Hellenized into Rakotis. Despite this, the name Alexandria would remain.
Here's a Ubisoft picture of Rakotis. And tour completed. Let's go Kemu this time. We got Alexandria, a commercial hub, 6 station, 5 minutes. Gonna learn all about its commercial life.
Welcome to Alexandria. The ports of Alexandria were a major commercial hub, effectively connecting Egypt with the Mediterranean regions and beyond. A tremendous amount of materials and goods flowed through the city on a daily basis. The large port market was called the Emporion. It was there that merchandise was traded by the shipowners, called nakliros.
And the overview once again.
Food and other artisan work streamed out of Egypt. Ceramics, glass, golden rings, and minted coinage. The local potters, using traditional Egyptian techniques, competed with those from abroad, and the textile industry flourished. What Egypt did not produce itself was acquired through trade, using local resources such as wheat and papyrus. Most sought after was pine wood from Syria, iron and marble from the Greek islands, gold from Spain, and exotic fruits from Europe. All this commercial activity contributed to the already decadent wealth of the city.
Shirt and sheets, various qualities of woven linen, 18th dynasty. Very nice. I'm gonna buy some of those for my bed. Sold, they probably just smell naturally in, you know, an odd way or something.
The wood imported to Port Mariotis through Alexandria's seaward ports was used in the nearby shipyards, where most of Egypt's ships were built. Employing tens of thousands of shipbuilders, the shipyards contributed to establishing the Egyptian fleet as one of the mightiest of the era. Any wood not used in shipbuilding was further disseminated through Egypt for various purposes.
Here is the Ptolemaic Palace Catamaran of the Ptolemies. Another rendition by Jean-Claude.
The southern port of Lake Mariotis was the biggest in Alexandria. Save for a branch angling westward, the lake's size in the Ptolemaic era was roughly 40 to 50 kilometers from north to south. Its waters were maintained by a steady runoff from the Nile. In addition to the lake, a man-made canal was created to assist in the transfer of goods from the city to the port using barges, though it is not represented in the game due to its size.
So, overview of Alexandria, detail on Alexandria and Lake Mariotis, 1995. Sorry, it's like the same image zoomed in or just an alternate view. It's the same guy. Not sure if they just changed the angle or it's an actual entirely different painting. Or artwork, whatever you want to call it.
Banking was one of the most distinctive innovations brought by the Greeks to Egypt. The centerpiece of Alexandria's wealth was the royal systematization of taxes on almost everything. Basic items such as salt, oil, beer, wheat, and linen were heavily taxed. As a result, the royal treasury of Alexandria was able to ensure the economic stability of most of the administrative areas of Egypt.
Here is a gold octadrachm of Ptolemy IV, Cleopatra. I don't even know if that's what you call it, octadrachm. It's gotta be something like that. Pretty cool looking coin for being so old. Get out the way, sir. And it's the last spot.
By the late 12th century, the channel feeding the lake from the Nile silted up. Lake Mariotis lost its connection to the Mediterranean, as well as most of its water, as the lake slowly evaporated to a fraction of its former size. In modern times, Lake Mariotis is being kept alive through irrigation. However, only about 17% of its original size remains.
There's a picture of Alexandria, just so you know. Tour complete. So we got Alexandria, city of celebration now. Still got a handful to go. But most of them are not as long as what we've already completed. Taking me a little bit longer than planned. So I never planned for the actual time we spend extra looking at pictures or any of that, so my prediction of like an hour and like 36 minutes is probably not right because we're at an hour and 10 basically right now. But I'll just keep plowing through this. I'm probably not going to do any more of these today. I got to update the schedule on the website already, so this was supposed to be Dishonored time, but I'm moving that to tomorrow. Alexandria, City of Celebration.
Welcome to Alexandria, City of Celebration. Like most Greek cities, Alexandria offered multiple forms of entertainment. Most were related to cults, religious practices, and the festivities surrounding those practices. Among those festivities, the most important ones were the dynastic celebrations, instituted in honor of the deified Ptolemaic kings and queens. These celebrations could go on for many days and included sacrifices, offerings, processions, and public banquets.
So here's wrestlers. They appeared during the Royal Games.
How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Lito's golden sun. How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one? Rocky Delos hunter, Lito's golden sun. Light bringing Phoebus, I am but your lyre. Hear my oath, give me your song.
Games and competitions were organized whenever possible in locations such as the stadium, the hippodrome, and the gymnasium. The residents of Alexandria favored such events where athletes, poets, and musicians from Egypt and other cities of the Greek world competed.
So, vase with figures in red, 5th century BCE. So they're having a grand old time, letting it all hang out apparently.
Like all good Greek cities, Alexandria had a theater. The architecture of this structure is Roman in style. This is because the team duplicated a theater from Cyrene. Roman theaters were usually semicircular and built from scratch on a flat area with structures designed to enhance oration. Greek theaters were more oblong in shape, similar to a horseshoe, and favored the slopes of natural hills to support their acoustics.
Here is the hills and valleys of Greece, the Epidaurus Theater. Picture taken in the 20th century, aka the 1900s. Looks very comfortable, stone seats. Alright, Ptolemy is going to perform for everybody.
At the theater, one could witness the plays of contemporary comic and tragic authors. The play you are witnessing below is Menander's Dyskolos, more commonly known as the Grouch, a late and popular entry in the Greek comedies.
Looks broken to me. So we have the Astrakhan with Menander's sentences, circa 580 to 640. Da, hello. Do get out of my chair. Excuse me. Oh, I can't climb the chair? Take it from him? Since we're here, let's choose this actor, dude. Education in Alexandria. What the heck's it doing? There we go. I was holding the X down, it was just flashing red, that was weird.
Welcome to Education in Alexandria. The education of young Alexandrians did not differ from the one generally dispensed elsewhere in ancient Greece. At the age of 7, the child was taken in charge by a tutor, who then became responsible for instilling an elementary education as well as good moral principles.
Here is a bowl. Guessing this is depicting teaching something. Teachers. Does that look like music and readings?
Teaching was generally done outside, in the open air. In the gymnasium, students were taught not only sports, but also topics such as rhetoric, philosophy, music, and poetry. All things deemed essential to one's education at the time.
Archaeological site of Olympia, Greece, gymnasium.
Here, both girls and boys are shown attending a class given by one of the rhetoricians of the era. The team made the choice to show both genders attending class within the context of the game world. Even though it is historically inaccurate, the team felt it was not necessary to prioritize historical sexism over inclusive gameplay.
I'm guessing it was all boys in the class, as they didn't want to say. Here is the Vase, depicting a dance lesson, 5th century BCE. And tour completed. Time for the Greek man to go see the Great Library of Alexandria. A 7-minute tour.
Welcome to the Great Library of Alexandria. Near the district of royal palaces and within the Mosaeon was the most famous library of all antiquity. The Library of Alexandria was built to house all of human knowledge. At its pinnacle, the library was believed to contain over 700,000 parchments.
So here's Jean-Claude interpretation of the Alexandria Center with Library.
Throughout the centuries, fires and wars between Christianity and paganism destroyed the library, leaving nothing behind. The loss of the building, and more importantly, its vast collection, is immeasurable. As no descriptions are available, the team's rendition of the Library of Alexandria was inspired by the visuals of the Library of Chalcis at Ephesus.
So here is the Library of Chalcis at Ephesus, Roman period. It's a pretty nice looking library.
While much of the collection was purchased at the government's expense, the library also obtained books through other means. Any books owned by travelers coming through the city were seized to be copied for the library. The copy would then be returned to the owner, and the original entered into the library's collection.
That's not very nice. Just take your book. This is mine now. I'll give you a copy soon. Library of Alexandria by Ubisoft. It's quite the grand library. I would go there. It's like the only library I'd go to. It looks pretty dang nice. If we can't run in here, we gotta be quiet. He's walking pretty slow. And I can't control it.
Alexandria offered unrivaled intellectual and cultural attractions. Eminent scholars from Athens, Rhodes, and other Greek centers traveled to the city to learn and engage with other free thinkers. Both the Mosaeon and the library were at the center of groundbreaking ideas and creative expression.
So, Plato's Academy mosaic, I was about to say academic, 1st century BCE.
The great minds of antiquity were usually well versed in many disciplines, which were often associated to specific schools of thought. The Peripatetics, the Stoics, and the Cynics were among the most well-known schools of the time. It is clear that Alexandria lived up to its fundamental role as a city for intellectuals, nurturing many great minds whose impact reverberates through our modern world.
Auditorium, Ubisoft rendition. Reason this takes so long because you do walk so slow.
Hypatia of Alexandria was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, astronomer, and inventor. Though born in Greece, she eventually migrated to Alexandria, like many great minds of the time. It is there that she became the head of the Neoplatonist school of Alexandria. From most accounts, she was highly respected by her fellow Alexandrians, both as a teacher and a philosopher. With her death, the age of great ancient scientific discoveries came to an end.
Draped woman, statuette found in Alexandria, 3rd century BCE.
Callimachus was born in Cyrene and educated in Athens. After his studies, he moved to Alexandria to work in the Great Library. A poet and a critic, he strongly rejected the epic format of Homeric poems, and instead fervently supported a shorter, more judiciously formulated style of poetry. His epigrams and elegiac poems were emulated by later poets. His work was extremely popular, second only to Homer's own works.
Marble statue of a draped seated man. It looks like he's been beheaded. 1st century BCE. Come on, dude. You're almost out of here. You'll climb up here, but you won't run. This is painful to walk this slow in a video game. It's like the end of Outlast, when it takes like a half hour to finish, and it's like 10 feet away.
It was in Alexandria that mathematician Euclid, the father of geometry, wrote the Elements, laying out the foundational work of what would become modern algebra and number theory. Euclidean geometry would become one of the most influential systems in the evolution of mathematics.
So here he is. I think they said Euclid, founder of geometry, 300 BCE, 18th century. He's like, I must teach people about shapes.
How do you calculate the circumference of the Earth? With a camel, 2 sticks, and shadows cast by the sun. This is what Eratosthenes of Cyrene described in his principal work, Geography, while he was director of the Great Library of Alexandria. He is credited for the invention of the armillary spear around 250 BCE.
Map of the world by Eratosthenes of Cyrene, circa 240 BCE. Let's see real quick. There's Albion, the Fable 3 town, it's real. There's Germania, we already have an idea what that got turned into. Italia, well that's pretty clear. Asia, Arabia, India. Where's America? You're forgotten and unknown to exist.
The earliest known and most complete armillary sphere of antiquity was the Meteoroscopion of Alexandria, with an imposing 9 rings compared to the 3 or 4 of most other astrolabes. Known as the zodiac krikatoi amongst the Greeks, the meteoroscopion was used to determine the location of celestial bodies around the Earth. Every self-respecting astronomer of antiquity would have sought to use this tool to better understand the celestial movements.
So we have a armillary sphere made by Jean-Baptiste Delors and Jean Pigeon. I almost butchered Jean. Let's call him Jean. Damn, that would have been disrespectful. Especially after all my emphasis on it. What is this? Oh, we can't move it? Push it. Just start spinning it.
Pythagoras of Samos was a well-known and respected philosopher and mathematician. He is best known for the Pythagorean theorem.
Oh, that theorem.
However, there is proof that the theorem existed in Babylonia and India long before Pythagoras was born, casting some doubts as to who exactly originated the theorem.
Sounds like Christopher Columbus. He didn't find America, but then he got the name, just like this dude. It's Pythagoras, shown teaching. What's up, dude? I had to learn about your theorem in geometry. It's all your fault. This guy's like, I don't care. I'm gonna face the other way and write down. What are you facing, bro? Are you in this class, or are you just sitting here interrupting? Be the Greek noblewoman for the Museion of Alexandria, and we're gonna find out I butchered that name in like 30 seconds here. Thanks to anyone who's watching. I think we're in the final 5 of Alexandria, then I still have to do the Roman ones, but my time's all messed up for overall streams. I'm in the process of getting ready to move, which I mentioned like every stream now, because people gotta know what's up, because you know, my schedule's never been butchered so much in multiple weeks. At first I was being delayed, and that was it. Now it's really just chopping up. I'm gonna do my best to plan the rest of the week though, so you guys know what's up. I do want to finish out this game ASAP, and I might even try to fit in the Assassin's Creed tour that I plan to do, where I'm going to ride a horse around the entire map into all the major cities and wander their streets, including DLC. And this way I don't have to worry about it next week, because I'll close out the game officially this week. But let's just get through this first.
Welcome to the Museion of Alexandria.
The Museion of Alexandria.
The Museion was a sector of the city commissioned by Ptolemy I to rival Athens' Academy as an institute of intellectual pursuit. Dedicated to the 9 inspiring muses, the Museion became a great center for philosophical and scientific enlightenment. It welcomed scholars from many kingdoms, inviting them to share knowledge in literature, science, and geography.
The sarcophagus of the Muses, circa 150.
The Museion was designed so that its buildings and grounds would accommodate free thinking, debate, and presentation. Meeting spaces and theaters surrounded a main courtyard. Expansive gardens were filled with exotic plants that aided in the study and supply of herbs and medicines. A zoo offered the study of animal behavior and physiology. Also among the Museion's many star attractions was its astronomical observatory.
They've shown this picture like 30 times at this point. Let's just continue on. I'm not going to go over it again.
Herophilus was a physician who lived most of his life in Alexandria. He was able to perform the dissection of human cadavers on a large scale due to the permissiveness of the city in such matters. Among many other discoveries, he learned that the brain was central to the human nervous system. He also extensively mapped the blood system and measured the pulse with the aid of a water clock. It is reported that in his thirst to understand human anatomy, he performed 600 vivisections on live prisoners.
That's insane. I mean, without it though, they wouldn't have learned about it as early on. So it's bad and good. I don't know. Water clock fragment, right here from circa 320 BCE.
In order to be free to pursue their research, scholars were fed and housed at the Mouseion at the government's expense. This freedom provided Alexandria scholars a meeting space for intellectual pursuits and a haven for spiritual peace.
Oh man, it was free.
The remains of the original Mouseion, it lives on as the legacy of our modern museums.
And how are they gonna have free education in Alexandria, and then over here we gotta spend like 5 digits a year for a dang education? Boo! So here's the market gate of Miletus, a well-preserved Greek city, 2nd century. That is a really cool looking wall. Look how fancy these walls are. They put so much time into design and materials and stuff. It's crazy. Nowadays we build everything so cheaply. It's kind of actually sad. Like all new constructions like wood nowadays, except skyscrapers. For the most part, there's a wood skyscraper going up somewhere in the world. I saw it. I forget exactly where it said. So we have the Serapeon of Alexandria. 4 minutes.
Welcome to the Serapeon of Alexandria.
Serapeon. So here we are at the Serapeon.
In a city of numerous magnificent attractions, the Serapeon was considered to be the most beautiful temple of Alexandria. Located southwest of the city on a small hill known as the Acropolis, the sanctuary was constructed during the reign of Ptolemy III, upon foundations which had existed since the reign of Ptolemy I Soter.
So here's another picture by Jean-Claude. Got to change characters, we'll do so next tour. It's not against the end of the world that I didn't do so. Maybe it is.
Visitors of the Serapeon climbed 100 steps to reach the courtyard. Libraries were installed in the porticos surrounding the square building, with its roof and columns adorned with gold and gilded bronze. Pharaohs were generous to the temple, as were several Roman emperors after Egypt's conquest. An inner temple housed the statue of Serapis, dedicated to healing the sick.
So here we have the foundation plaque from the Serapeum in Alexandria, 221 to 204 BC. We may have seen this before. Something similar at least.
Since the 26th dynasty, Greeks in Egypt had gradually integrated the Egyptian cult of the Apis bull to their own rituals. With the establishment of the Ptolemaic Dynasty, the cult of Apis was further integrated into Greek religion. During his rule, Ptolemy I chose to merge Egyptian and Hellenic gods into a syncretic divinity named Serapis. This name was the result of the amalgamation of Osiris and Apis. With this new deity, the Ptolemaic Dynasty managed to accommodate similar belief sets for two different cultures, bringing about a new dynastic cult.
So here you have Serapis bust with Calothos from Alexandria, from the Serapum, 2nd century BCE. It's a pretty detailed face with like a pot on his head. He's a pothead. And the last checkpoint right here.
Serapis was also associated to other deities, including Asclepius, a Greek god of healing. It is possible that, as with the Serapis Temple of Canopus, the sick would visit this sanctuary, sleeping there overnight in the hopes of being healed within its hallowed halls.
Here is a pendant with a scene with Serapis, Isis a snake, and Harpocrates. Tour complete. We have the islands of Pharaohs, 9 stations.
Welcome to the Islands of Pharos. The Heptastadion was a bridge-like causeway connecting the island of Pharos to mainland Alexandria. Its name is based on the Greek terms of measurement, hepta, meaning 7, and stadion, which is a measure of length of roughly 180 meters.
So there's Alexandria, view from the Mediterranean Sea.
Since its construction would separate the Grand Port to the east and the port of Eunostos to the west, it was designed with channels at each end. These openings allowed passage from one port to the other.
So here's Alexandria, Canopic Way. Detail on Heptastadion, 1995 by Jean-Claude.
Along with creating separate harbors for the commercial and military shipping, the causeway served as a main aqueduct for the island's inhabitants. Its presence also helped protect the island and its ports from rough wind and sea currents. At the end of antiquity, the Heptastadion disappeared under layers of silt and soil, which formed an important sedimentary deposit.
Here's the map of Alexandria, 1575. Doesn't even show the bridges separating the land, if you don't notice.
While the Serapeum was the most celebrated of the temples in Alexandria, many other temples were built within the city. Most of these structures have been completely erased over time, and there is no way to discern how many existed. However, research of ancient papyri offered tantalizing hints as to the possible location of at least some of the temples.
Here is Alexandria and its environs. View of the obelisk known as the Nido of Cleopatra and the Tower of the Romans, 19th century.
Both papyri and coins reveal evidence of many temples built for the gods. Poseidon, the god of the sea, likely had an edifice in his honor west of this island, as well as on the mainland. This temple next to you is dedicated to Isis Pharia, the divine protector of the lighthouse. This location hosted annual celebrations in the month of April, known as the Sacrum Pharia, in connection to the lighthouse. In her incarnation as Isis Fortuna, the goddess carries a rudder and a cornucopia, both symbols of good luck for navigators.
Here is the statue of Fortuna, Vatican Museum, Rome.
Considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Lighthouse of Alexandria was a source of great pride for the inhabitants of the city. Construction began under Ptolemy I's reign and lasted 15 years. It was completed during his son's rule. Once completed, the lighthouse was dedicated to the gods for the salvation of those who sail the sea.
So, Isis Pharia, divine protector of sailors, Roman Empire.
Built on the island of Pharos, the stone structure was 3 tiers set on top of one another in a step formation. The second floor consisted of an octagonal tower, and the top floor was a cylindrical tower topped by a statue. The interior provided space for staff rooms and a ramp which allowed the transport of fuel to the upper floors.
The Alexandria Lighthouse, as depicted by Jean-Claude.
Essential to safe navigation through the rifts and shallow waters, the Pharos was a functioning lighthouse with a beam reportedly visible 50 kilometers away. It's unclear what kind of fuel was used or how much. Any other details of how the light worked remain a mystery.
Here is the tower, Alexandria Lighthouse, 16th century. There's the ramp going to the tower, it goes up, and there's the light.
For several centuries, the Pharos was one of the highest monuments ever built by man. It measured roughly 110 meters in height, compared to the Pyramid of Giza, which was around 140 meters tall. Gradually, the structure was eroded by earthquakes, and then completely destroyed in 1480 CE, when a fort was built over it. Archaeological excavations on the seabed have uncovered many blocks from the ancient building.
So, Alexandria currency under Hadrian, Lighthouse, 2nd century BCE. So, pretty cool. Worthy of a picture, it's an awesome structure. Take Camus for the next one. We have the Panon, 2 minutes. Let's see how I butchered this word as well. We have 2 more, and then we have the 5 for the Romans, and we're done. And then there's only one set of tours left for the final achieve and completion of this entire DLC. It's quite a long DLC, to be honest. I'm surprised. I did suspect up to 4 streams for it, but the time consumed is more than my typical stream.
Welcome to the Panean.
The Panean.
The Panean was a temple built in honor of the god Pan, divinity of nature. This Greek god, often represented as a half-man, half-goat, with a beard, horns, and goat's hooves, was considered the protector of shepherds and herds.
So there's Pan seated, Greco-Roman era.
Pan's attribute was his namesake musical instrument, the pan flute. His temples were usually located in caves and on high mountains, and were frequented by shepherds. It is likely that Mediterranean cults adopted the imagery of Pan to symbolize the Christian devil.
Here's a plaque, Temptation of Christ, 15th century.
To give proper honor to the god, Alexandrians built an artificial hill upon which they housed his temple to compensate for the flat relief of the city. The artificial mound had the shape of a spinning top or a pine cone, which was accessed by a spiral staircase. The top had a panoramic view of the entire city. Only such heights would be fitting for a mountain god.
And there you have it, tour completed. Leaves one final tour for Alexandria, the Hippodrome of Alexandria. We're just going to go as Camus. There's no point in changing for a 2-minute section.
Welcome to the Hippodrome of Alexandria. The main hippodrome of the city was called the Legeon, in honor of Lagos, the ancestor of the Ptolemies. Alexandrians were great lovers of horse racing. They were fascinated by the rivalry of these races, the agon, as it was said at that time, that every competition brought. It was a struggle for glory.
So here's the Legeon Serpum, 2012 by Jean-Claude. Crazy looking racetrack.
The most important chariot race was the Tethrapon. Using 4 horses with the quickest harness to the front right, the charioteer would race for 12 laps with sharp turns at either end of the hippodrome. The victors were crowned with garlands of olive and received prize money, but the most sought-after reward was to be acclaimed by the works of poets such as Callimachus and Pindar.
A relief known as Campana, circus scenes, quadriga race, Roman Empire. There's like a guy on the ground there, like crawling, about to get trampled. So I just wanted to try something. It's a pretty sweet angle right here. What I was looking for.
Ye hymns that rule the lyre, what god, what hero, aye, and what man shall we loudly praise? Verily Zeus is the lord of Pisa, and Heracles established the Olympic festival, while Theron must be proclaimed by reason of his victorious chariot with its 4 horses. Theron, who is just in his regard for guests, and who is the bulwark of Acragas, the choicest flower of an auspicious line of sires, whose city towers on high, bringing wealth and glory to crown their native merits.
So the winner of a chariot race, pre-classic period, being celebrated. Tour completed. Let's check our passport. That means we officially completed Egypt, pyramids, and Alexandria. Now we have to get through the Roman ones, but it's only 15 minutes, 5 of 3. So let's get slamming through this. Let's be Julius Caesar for all of the Roman ones, since, you know, fits perfectly. So we have Roman military equipment in the Green Mountains. Here we go.
Welcome to Roman military equipment. The strength of Rome was directly dependent on its military supremacy and fundamentally militaristic society. Regular citizens, comprised mostly of farmers and herders, joined to protect their land and families. In return for their service, members of this civic army were allowed to vote. Trained to be highly disciplined and obedient to superior officers, citizen soldiers developed a deep sense of loyalty to their city.
So here is the Skyphos, Tiberius' triumph in preparation of a sacrifice.
The quality of the armor of a Roman foot soldier was intrinsically linked to his social status and wealth. Chainmail was the most commonly used type of armor. Scale armor, made famous in today's media, came into use after Caesar's time. Foot soldiers carried large and oblong shields, while the cavalry used smaller ones of Greek origin. Soldiers were expected to carry their own kit, including the tools required for the construction of forts and tents.
A relief base of the altar of Domitius Ahenobarbus, Lorator conducting a census, 2nd century BCE.
Roman soldiers used the same types of weapons. The stomach and face were the most targeted parts of the body. As such, a legionary was equipped with 2 close combat weapons, a dagger and a short sword, known as a gladius. One of the most ingenious Roman weapons was the javelin. Its pyramid-shaped tip pierced the body, while its iron shank was designed to break upon impact, stopping the enemy from throwing it back.
A marching Roman soldier with gear, 1876.
During their conquests, the Romans regularly transformed enemy technologies to add to their own formidable arsenal. After capturing a Carthaginian vessel, the Romans adopted its better features and constructed a superior fleet of ships. Adapting heavy artillery designs from Greek models aided the Romans in building catapults and ballistae. The latter became an iconic symbol of Roman warfare.
So there's Trajan's column, 2nd century. Tour completed of the Roman military equipment. Next we have Roman forts.
Welcome to Roman forts. The size of a Roman military camp, known as a castrum, varied significantly depending on how many soldiers it needed to accommodate. However, they all shared common characteristics in design and construction, such as this fort before you, located in Cape Chersonesos. Rectangular in shape, the forts were heavily fortified by ramparts and a ditch system. The walls were reinforced with parapets, essentially an extension at the roofline which allowed a protective barrier for patrolling soldiers. Depending on the availability of materials, some forts were built with stone, timbers, stacked turf, and particularly in the eastern part of the empire, baked brick. Access doors on all 4 sides were each flanked by guard towers. The commanding officer was positioned in the middle of the camp, giving him a clear view of the troops and the main gate. Along with sleeping barracks for the soldiers, the fort also had a granary that was expected to hold rations for a year or longer. To ensure the health of the soldiers, every camp was equipped with medical staff and a hospital. A clean water supply with conduits for a bathhouse and latrines was included in the construction of every fort.
And that completes our tour of the Roman forts. We have 3 more tours to go before the stream is ended. Then 1 more stream for this entire DLC due to daily life, and then 1 more stream for my personal tour of the map. Shout out to K-Made XP, what is up? Welcome to the stream. So we got the forts of Cyrenaica, again in the Green Mountains.
Welcome to the forts of Cyrenaica. Cyrenaica was a Libyan region under Roman control, gifted to Rome by one of Cleopatra's ancestors. The remains and foundations of ancient fortifications were discovered in the 19th century in the southwest of Cyrenaica, as well as a Roman garrison dating back to the 1st century CE. Evidence shows that these forts were of Libyan origin, rebuilt and modified by Roman engineers when Cyrenaica was part of the empire.
So here's a village near Cyrene by Jean-Claude. Nice little thing. Looks like, you know, I got the townhouse concept going on with all the houses piled on top of each other. How their soundproofing was. Considering they just had stone walls.
Stone was the most commonly used material to build forts in Egypt and Cyrenaica. Though no real proof of a fortress similar to the one before you has been uncovered in that region, the team chose to add it as a worthy and awe-inspiring end-of-game challenge for the player.
Lying to us that this existed. The heck, Ubisoft.
The forts of Cyrenaica were intended to prevent invaders from gaining access to the main route that led to the country's 5 most important cities. These forts were built close to coastal plains and deserts for added defense. 3 of these cities were recreated by the team: Balagrae, Apollonia, and Cyrene. Had it existed, the fort before you would have protected the road leading to Balagrae.
So here is a map of the world. I believe we've seen this earlier. It's just highlighting the Mediterranean right there. You can see right the lower portion of the circle where we're at. Basically Libya.
Other than reference to an attack around 404 CE and a military reorganization by Emperor Justinian during the 6th century CE, we still know little of the Roman military presence in Cyrenaica.
Man, then it's all a lie. It's a lie. Either way, forts of Cyrenaica, Jesus Christ. Excuse my language there, but I'm just butchering these words. Not used to pronouncing stuff in this way. It's not how you would say it in English. It would probably sound completely horrible in English if you tried to pronounce it the way we would. Roman aqueducts. 3 minutes, 5 stations for this one. And then one more and I'm officially ending the stream. For anyone interested, I'm not sure what my plan will be tonight, but I was planning 2 more streams. I really do not want to alter the schedule or cancel anything. I already started Outlast 2 this week. I already started this. Dishonored Death of the Outsider is the only thing I'd consider postponing, or Call of Duty at this point. But I'll have to see what I decide.
Welcome to Roman Aqueducts. Water management was taken seriously by the Romans. Cyrenaica benefited greatly from Roman administration, with the construction of aqueducts and canals. The source of water varied depending on the location. Many aqueducts were built at the foot of the mountains, offering greater flow from the melting snow.
The Pont du Gard Aqueduct, 18th century. Crazy how they build this enormous structure to transfer water, and nowadays everything's just hidden underground in pipes. Yeah, we want to go up. Excuse me, person. I wasn't sure at first what it wanted me to do.
The ability to transport water over a greater distance increased agricultural production. Some aqueducts were reported to be over 7 kilometers in length. Where the Greeks of Libya originally focused mainly on olive trees and figs, which required less water, the advent of Roman aqueducts allowed for a far greater crop diversity. Every farm's water use was carefully scheduled.
So here you have around Cairo 1, view of the aqueduct situated near the old Cairo. You see it's on the in the background near the tree.
Yeah. Whoa, whoa.
Let's get a horse. I'm not trying to run all the way over here. Spend, you know, a minute trying to get over here.
The engineering methods used to create aqueducts were constantly reviewed, with a clear focus on exploiting the local environment. Materials, water usage, cleaning regulations, and a deep understanding of how to exploit gravity itself were all important concerns. Several fortresses were built to protect the aqueducts, basins, and cisterns.
So Roman leveling tools, Roman Empire. Pretty simple tools.
Yep.
Additional water was collected with wells and cisterns, but aqueducts were the main supply of fresh water. The water was distributed based on the collective needs of the city, before the private needs of an individual.
Here is the Roman aqueduct of Segovia, 20th century. It's pretty insane. I'd definitely like to see that. Excuse my butchering of words and stuff more frequently. I've been doing this for like 5 hours now or something crazy, like 4 to 5 hours, just going through this educational thing. And it is, yeah.
Almost all aqueducts ended in a fountain where the water circulated to clean the streets and supply bathhouses and latrines, thus improving the cleanliness of Cyrenaica's cities.
Tour completed. Officially one more tour left for the Romans, crucifixion, 3 minutes. Let's go.
Welcome to Crucifixion. In terms of the severity of Roman justice, crucifixion was at the top of the list of corporal punishment, followed by death by fire and decapitation. The upper class considered crucifixion unworthy of their position. Those lucky enough to have Roman citizenship were also exempt from such treatment. Easily accessible, crucifixions were popular entertainment among the citizenry. Unlike throwing victims to wild animals, which required an arena, crucifixions did not require any particular setting.
Here is a decimation showing people, the guy on the right's being like mauled by lions while he's hanging there, the guy in the middle's just hanging. People being pushed off a cliff. The one's on fire in the background. It's pretty crazy.
Those subjected to crucifixion were almost always slaves, traitors, and lower-class citizens. Roman deserters were crucified because the betrayal of the soldiers was perceived as endangering the lives of Roman citizens.
Here is the martyrdom of St. Andrew, Renaissance.
In 71 BCE, a major slave uprising in Italia was repressed by the Roman army. This resulted in the crucifixion of 6,000 men, including their leader, a slave and former gladiator known as Spartacus.
Here is Spartacus breaking his chains. And tour completed. So, for everyone who's interested to know, we can go to Passport. You see I've completed all of Egypt, all of Pyramids, all of Alexandria, and all of the Romans. I have one more stream which I'll dedicate to daily life and the final achievement I need in this entire game. And then one more stream after that will be dedicated to making a tour video myself. For my own personal tour video, I'll probably, visit Cyrene, Apollonia, make my way over to Alexandria, go through Canopus, drone by the Hippodrome, visit out Heracleion, come down here to Memphis and Giza. You gotta go by the pyramids, visit Philly on the way down to Crocodilopolis. We definitely gotta swing down to see the desert, even if it's just for a second. And pretty much we can visit a few cities along the route as we go, and we'll just kind of work our way back up through Siwa. And we have to visit the Quatara Depression to look at the mountains, and end up in the Green Mountains and back up here. And then I would switch to the DLC maps so I could show you the two little cities in Hidden Ones and Thebes and the other area in the other one. It'll probably take me like a full 2 hours to do it all. It'll be a lot of time and work, but I'm completely game to do it. So thank you guys for watching, greatly appreciate it. For anyone interested, I'm gonna, I'm taking an hour break period, so at 8 o'clock I'll probably start a stream. I'm gonna have to debate and think about what I'm gonna do. At this point I'm considering postponing Call of Duty another week. I don't think it'll hurt. I'll have to really sit down and look at it though. I want to see what games I want to play. I think next week I had 2 open slots that I wanted to fill, even with the game list I had. So I'm thinking that if I do have that, I can move COD to those 2 spots. And next week will be Dishonored, Outlast 2, Far Cry 5 as my main games, Call of Duty, Minecraft as my secondary, Sherlock Holmes, Forza Motorsport 7, Gone Home as tertiary. I forgot Crazy Taxi as a secondary, and then the usual Fortnite and Star Wars Battlefront 2. Something along those lines. I'll let you guys know. I'm gonna have to sit down and mess around with the schedule for the next 2 weeks, including the rest of this week. There should be hopefully 2 more streams today, and we'll figure it out. But I think by knocking Call of Duty off the list, I'll free up a spot. I may even throw Minecraft into that spot just because I've been craving to play it for some reason for a while. I'll let you guys know for sure. Thanks for watching, like and sub. Peace out.